Welcome to the Equinety Podcast, where horse owners just like you share their incredible Equinety stories and how Equinety is changing their horses' lives. Whether you're searching for something to give your performance horse better focus, faster recovery, and more stamina, or in the extreme case where all hope seems lost, give your horse what it needs to help heal at a cellular level, you'll find it here. So jump in on today's episode to hear how Equinety is helping horses worldwide. Now, welcome your host, John Dowdy.
Hello and welcome to another Equinety Podcast. I am really excited this week to have on Jessica Moore out of Copperas Cove, Texas. And I'm telling you, if you are dealing with any kind of hoof issues, this is the podcast to tune into. We're going to be talking about Whiteline, Thrush, collapsed heels, Navicular, even getting into some arthritic issues. Without further ado, Jessica, welcome to the Equinety Podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you on. So let's get right into this. We're going to be talking about your 17-year-old rescue named Rooster. Tell us how you acquired Rooster and what was going on with him when you kind of got him in.
Well, Rooster was offered up on Facebook as a free horse, and a lady was going through a divorce, and she just needed him to go. She'd had him up for sale, couldn't sell him, and I told her that I would take him. I didn't hear from her for a little bit, and then she messaged me and said, if you still want him, he's yours. I was like, let me hook up the trailer, and I head out to go pick him up. She brought him to the trailer. He was limping a little bit, but she was walking across some rocks, and he didn't have shoes on, and she was like, he's just tender-footed. Okay. Not a big deal. We get him into the trailer, and I take him back to my place. And then we started noticing that the limping was coming a little bit more, and he was coming up more lame. And so we decided I started looking into maybe putting some boots on that. She said he was just tender-footed when it came to rocks. And I started looking at boots and the prices and which ones that he could stay in a paddock 24/7 with. And I just decided, before I go and spend all this money, let me have an x-ray because I know nothing of this horse. So I loaded him up and I took him down to my vet where we had x-rays done of his feet. And it came back, he was diagnosed with navicular, moderate navicular disease. And so she said she didn't know how severe because we didn't do an MRI. We just did x-rays. And they did a nerve block in him on the foot that was bothering him the worst. We later discovered that he had severe thrush. He had Whiteline disease as well. It was, he did have some arthritis. He was impaled in one of his shoulders by, I don't know what, but he's got a big gouge. So we put him on pain meds, brought him back, and he showed some improvement with the pain meds and with the nerve block. It still wasn't enough. I was soaking his feet in oxine every other day, scrubbing his feet. We still weren't seeing a huge improvement from this. And we decided to change his feed. We went to an extruded feed and started rationing out his hay. We did start to see some improvements after that. The Equinety the ad kept coming up, but I kept passing it because I was skeptical. I want to do the research. I want the numbers in front of me. I want to see results before I go and jump on this miracle stuff that's supposed to help. So I'm a little stubborn, but I kept reading. Mm-hmm. And I came across this one that on the Equinety site where it was a horse that was suffering from navicular. And I saw the results from it. And most people tell you that when they get the navicular disease that eventually it's a death sentence for them. And I wasn't going to give up on him. He may be 17 years old, but he's still got a lot of life left in him.
Sure.
Part of me just wanted to try it after reading so many different stories on Equinety's Facebook, just combing through. I didn't focus on just all the horses that had Navicular. I wanted to see the results of all the horses from different aspects. So then I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this a try. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my farrier. I didn't tell the vet. I didn't tell anybody. I just wanted to try it, and I kept it under wraps, because if it didn't work, nobody knew.
Yes.
If it did, then, you know, I'd be like, oh, well, this is what I put him on.
Yeah.
I got the 15-day, and then it offered me for the other 15-day, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'll go ahead and do 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to try this for a full 30 days. We'll see what kind of results that we get. So my farrier had just come out, trimmed up his hooves. I got pictures of the day that she came out and trimmed up his hooves, and that was right before we started this. I also took pictures after 30 days of him being on it, of his hooves. She now has to come out and trim his hooves every 3 to 4 weeks, because we're doing corrective, but his hooves are growing so fast that she has to come out more often.
Yeah. Now, before we get into that, let's go back to you ordered the product initially, or the first order for the 30 days, because you were looking at doing the 30-day challenge. August 3rd is when you had placed the order, and around August 13th, you sent some initial pictures in. Now, one of the things that you had told me that Rooster had just excessive sweating. Tell us a little bit about that and what you found after just a few days of using the Equinety, what was going on, because you had sent pictures in without getting too graphic going on, but what was going on?
Rooster, when I first brought him home, we live in Texas, and we were having triple-digit weather. We had more rain than usual, and it was very humid. So when I would go out to feed him at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, he would be drenched with sweat, all down his neck, down his shoulders, running down his legs. It looked like you had pulled him out, put him in the round pen, worked him hard, and then put him back up. At first, I was like, okay, well, maybe it's the humidity, the heat. I kept looking around at the other horses that were around. I'm like, nobody else is sweating like this. So I started adding salt, because I didn't want him to dehydrate on me. I started adding the salt to his feed once a day. I got my Equinety in, and then started adding that to the feed. A couple of days later, I started noticing he was scouring. I would go out to his paddock, and it was just cow patties. So I sent in a message, and I was like, what is going on? Why is this happening? I was ready to pull it, take him off of it, and just cut my losses on it. I get this message that there's nothing in the product that would cause this. I go to start doing some research about everything that he's in. I didn't change his feed. He's on an extruded feed. His hay is the same. He wasn't eating anything other than that. With the research that I was doing, it showed that a massive amount of salt can cause issues as well. We pulled his salt, and within a couple of days, everything went back to normal. His stools went back to normal. I never changed how much I was giving of the Equinety. I never changed his feed. I never changed his hay. I just stopped putting the salt on top of his hay, on top of his feed. Mm-hmm. And then everything leveled back out.
Yeah, and with that being said, and every now and then we will receive messages like that. It's like, oh, I started the Equinety, and now this is now happening. You know, something that's not positive. And for those tuning in, and just like what I went back and forth with you in Messenger, you know, there is absolutely nothing in the Equinety that has any negative side effects, because it is 100% pure amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein. So if you started the Equinety and there's something weird going on, then just check and see what else you might have just added, like in this case, because in our communications, I didn't know that you had added salt, but I wouldn't know that you had added salt. And, you know, you didn't know because you were trying to fix the sweating aspect. So this is also why we recommend, you know, when you start the Equinety, don't change anything else that you're doing and just add the Equinety. That way you know it's the only element. So in this case, it just happened, you started the salt, and a few days later you started the Equinety. And, you know, fortunately through your research, you found that, hey, the salt could be doing it. So when you took that away, then everything leveled itself out, which is perfect. So now we jump ahead 30 days later, and you had sent me some video before and after what you tagged the 30-day challenge. So what did you find? And of course, again, just to reiterate, you're battling with Whiteline, Thrush, collapsed heels, Navicular, some arthritis. So let's skip ahead 30 days and tell us what's going on at the 30-day mark. And actually, we're a little bit beyond that, about 7 weeks in. But what are you finding now?
Well, now it was... One day I was looking at Rooster and I realized it was early in the morning, usually when he's starting to pour sweat. And I looked at him and it just clicked. He's not sweating. There's not an ounce of sweat on him right now. He's standing out here and he's not sweating. His demeanor had changed. He'd always been an aggressive. When I first got him, he was extremely food aggressive. He tried to roll my mare several times, cut her up pretty bad and everything. And this is over a fence line. And after he'd finished his first 30 days of it, I noticed the sweating was gone. The attitude was gone. He was calmer. He wasn't near as hyped up. He didn't seem angry, irritated. He wasn't acting like he was just starved. If anything got near a human, that's different. You could go with his food, that's fine. But any other animal couldn't get near his food. His feet. I took a picture of his feet and sent it to my farrier. And all she could send me was little hearts. She was so happy with his feet and how much they had improved in just a short amount of time that I had started it in between her last trimming and the next trimming that I had to do. And I had to bump it up because she was only going to come out every 4 to 5 weeks. She's now having to come out every 3 to 4 weeks because his feet are growing so fast.
Right. And what did you find with the frogs?
His frogs are starting to shed out for the first time. The old damaged is shedding off, and his new, bright, beautiful frogs are coming in. He's not near as tender-footed with them. The thrush has actually cleared out of 3 of his feet. We're still working on one. It was the worst one of all of them. But it is about 85% improved. Almost. We've got our fingers crossed. We're so close.
Mm-hmm.
The whiteline disease is clearing out. It's growing out. We've got a little bit more to go on it. But when she came out, I showed her what product that I had started on. And she was amazed by that. And she's curious to see what it's going to do as we keep using it.
Sure. Yep. And how about the collapsed heels?
They're growing out. He no longer looks like he's got, she likes to refer to it as a butt crack. She's like, they're growing out to where it looks more like thumbprints now, and the way that it's supposed to. He's not near as tender-footed because he's not landing near as much on his heels. He's actually leveling out with them. It's not, you can press on his heels now where it was collapsed, where it used to be super, super tender, and it's not tender anymore.
I tell you, it's going to be really interesting over the next month to 2 months as we continue to see the progress in this. And on our website at teamequinety.com, where we're going to have this podcast uploaded as well as on iTunes and several other places, but on our website specifically, we'll have this entire podcast transcribed, and then we'll have your video, your 30-day challenge video, as well as any other pictures that we can show before and after. And when you get an updated x-ray, if you decide to have one of those, we can put those up there as well so people can see. But I think this is very encouraging to people that are frustrated, that have tried all kinds of things, or that maybe just be looking for something and might be as skeptical as you were, that they'll go ahead and give this a try, the Equinety product, because, this isn't our only story with things like this, and we try to capture as many as we can and put it out there. So if you're dealing with a situation like this, maybe this can give you some hope, and we've just seen it time and time and time again. But well, is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't touched upon with Rooster?
Well, the one thing, the biggest drastic notice in the difference is in the first video, you never see Rooster get faster than his trot. Everything was too painful for him. That's as fast as he would get. It didn't matter how much you clicked at him, how much you had the lunge whip flying around. That was it. It hurt too much for him. The second video was about 30 days after I put him out there, and that was the first time that we'd ever seen him run or get into a lope.
Mm-hmm.
His previous owner had him for 3 years and said she had never seen him do that.
Wow.
And that right there, just seeing that difference to where he's actually moving was well worth it.
Sure.
He wasn't in near as much pain. His mane had grown out. His tail is now dragging the ground. And it's just, he's getting there.
Yeah.
We do plan on having x-rays done again after being on this for about a year. We want to go and see how much of this has changed, whether it stayed the same, it's gotten better, or it's gotten worse. But we want to give this a full year while he's on it to see how much this can change with that navicular disease.
Sure. That will be very, very interesting. And also I'll throw in there, because you mentioned the growth of the mane and the tail and demeanor and everything else that's changing. And if you're listening in for the first time and you're wondering, okay, well, how can one product, which is the Equinety Horse Excel, and by the way, a serving size is 5.2 grams. You have this tiny little scoop that's not even a tablespoon. And most people are like, how in the world can this little tiny scoop do all this stuff? Well, the amino acids are specifically formulated to stimulate the pituitary gland, which the pituitary gland is the master gland in the body, and that's what releases the necessary hormones, which then help heal at a cellular level. So we're actually giving the horse what it needs to help heal itself from the inside out. And so it's deciding where these repairs need to happen. In this case, it's mainly around the hoof, but you're also seeing the mane and the tail, and I'm sure the coat is softer, shinier, probably filling out a little bit more muscle-wise, but the attitude and demeanor, less stressed, not as nervous, and so that affects everything in a horse. I mean, when you're hurting, then sometimes you feel cranky and all these other things. Same thing with the horse. But, well, Jessica, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to share your story. And would you have anything else to say to anybody? I know you mentioned in the beginning when you kept seeing the ad, you were very skeptical. What would you have to say to anybody that might be kind of in the same position? They're seeing the ads roll across all the time thinking, hey, this is too good to be true. What would you have to tell them other than all the stuff that you've told them about the story to maybe get them to go ahead and try the 30-day challenge?
With it, when you're doing your research on it, trying to decide what product, because there are a lot of them out there, and there's so many to choose from, to do it. I would only go with ones that have many different testimonies with many different horses, where you can see the actual results from it. What do you have to lose if you're if you're looking at a supplement to help your horse, then you're willing to do whatever it takes. And most of us are spending hundreds of dollars a month on our horses, especially ones that have issues. All you have to do is try this for 30 days. You'll start to see the improvements in your horse. It may not be drastic. It may not be 100%, but you'll start to know see the differences in it in just that first 30 days. They offer you can buy a 15-day supply, and then they offer the other 15-day at half price. So it makes it a little bit easier on your wallet while you try it.
Mm-hmm.
I was already spending thousands of dollars a month on Rooster. And I didn't want him just to be a pasture puff that was going to be in pain. I was willing to try whatever, but I wanted to do my research and not just jump off and buy the first thing that I saw. And after doing the research, going to their Facebook, reading all their different testimonies, seeing all the different horses and the differences in them, I didn't have anything to lose with him. And by trying it, Rooster has made a drastic change, and I'll keep him on it.
Yeah. Now, speaking of keeping him on it, tell us real quick what happened when you were getting close to the end of your 30 days and you had placed the order for the large tub, the $100 tub, which is 100 servings. But tell us what happened there as you started to run low. What was happening?
So when I placed my order and I started to run low, I didn't want Rooster to be without. I didn't want to take a step back. So I started rationing it, and I was giving him like half scoops just because I wanted him to have some of it in his system, because from my research, your body doesn't store the amino acids. So each day, if you don't use it, then it's eliminated out of the body. Our body doesn't actually store that. So he needs it every single day. And I started giving him half. His sweat started coming back. His irritability started coming back. And all I kept thinking was, if FedEx doesn't hurry up and bring me my next bottle, I'm about to run out. And this horse is going to take steps backwards.
Right.
Not necessarily with the Whiteline or the Thrush, but just his attitude. The sweats from the stress or being in pain or for whatever reason. And then as soon as I got my package arrived was the day I had run out. And so I did his full scoop. I gave it to him. And within a couple of days, everything started to go back to the way that it was. The sweats went away. His demeanor calmed back down with it. So I have to order at least ahead of time so I don't run out again.
Yeah. Well, and I'll touch upon that too, because you explained that very well about the amino acids. Now, again, the amino acids that are in the Equinety, because they're specifically formulated to stimulate the pituitary gland to release the hormones. Now, the hormones that are released have a 23.5-hour life cycle. So when you give the Equinety product for the very first time, it actually starts working right away. Once it's absorbed, then it stimulates the pituitary to release the hormones. Now, those hormones have a 23.5-hour life cycle. So if you don't give the product the next day, then the hormone levels just go back to the way that they were before you started. So you were starting to see that. You were only given a half a scoop, so it wasn't stimulating at the full capacity. So, if you're given the product for 3 years and never miss a day, and then you stop, the hormone levels go back to the way they were 3 years ago or at that particular age. So that's why you were starting to see some regression with attitude mood, because it's maybe some of the pain or chronic issues were starting to creep back in. And we hear this a lot. People, sometimes they'll even do a little test. They'll keep their horse on for a while and they say, well, let me just stop giving this and see what happens. And they'll find that their horse will go back to the way that they were acting prior to. So just a side note there. So for those listening in for the first time, that's kind of how the product works internally. But Well, Jessica, once again, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know this is going to be a very, very helpful podcast for people out there and those that are dealing with all these types of issues. Again, with Whiteline, Thrush, collapsed heels, Navicular, some arthritis, rescue horse. So it's, I know it'll be very encouraging. So thank you very much for sharing your story.
Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
That's all for this episode of the Equinety Podcast. For more information on purchasing Equinety, be sure to visit our website at teamequinety.com, where you'll also find product information as well as more testimonials on how others have seen amazing results by implementing Equinety into their horse's supplement regime. We'll have more stories on how Equinety is helping horses worldwide right here on a future episode of the Equinety Podcast.